Welcome back to Seal Beam Rally Team. I'm Tyler. It's time to do some more work on the 63 Corvair project. Progress has been slow lately, but I'm trying to keep moving on some stuff here while other things are out of the shop. We got the heads at the head shop. We got some stuff to pick up at the powder coater. And in the meantime, I've been doing some little projects. So let's tackle some of those little things I need to clean up and get ready for everything to come back together again. I'm happy to say this episode is sponsored by Clark's Corvair Parts. If you haven't heard of them, they have some really high quality Corvair parts and they make pretty much everything available for these cars. So we'll talk about them later, but check them out if you haven't. So going forward, I have some stuff that I've been trying to clean up, and for this thing, this is an oil filter housing. The oil filter hangs off here and this all mounts to the back of the engine. And you have a fuel pump here, your oil filler, your oil filter, and the generator mounts over here. You got an idler mounts over here. It's just kind of like a multi-purpose mount for everything. So I wanted to get this thing cleaned up, taken apart, and just ready to put back on the engine so it's not grody and gunky and gross. The first thing I did was take out this oil filler, and it is pretty gross. So I actually found that there's a new gasket you can get on Clark's, and so I have that in my shopping list to come on my next order here. This whole filler tube actually comes out as well. We can get replacement fuel pumps, and then I'm going to take this little, what is this thing? Oil temp or oil pressure, I don't remember, sensor. Let's see if I can get this thing off. Glad I bought this oil pressure sensor socket at Napa. It's a 6-point thing, but it's specially made for these weird oil pressure sensors where they have the kind of flat sides on them. Anyway, so we got that off. I got that in my cart as well. We'll pick one of those up, and I want to get this thing maybe under a pressure washer or something. maybe buy an ultrasonic cleaner to get all this gunk out. But let's set it aside from now. We got some stuff that actually looks nice that we're going to put back together. First thing I want to work on here is the starter motor. So I actually pulled this thing apart and I cleaned it up and painted it. So we actually have a little bit of paint on there, a little bit of corrosion inhibition. And so I got that cap. We got the solenoid here painted up. And I used an engine enamel for this. And I also have the internals here. Everything looked pretty good. It was just really dirty. I think some critters got into it. So I'm going to try to reassemble this thing. Whoa. Really need that. Going to try to reassemble this thing real quick here and put new stainless hardware in. And we're going to get this thing all set back up so we can pop it back on the transmission when that's ready. I also took this nose thing off and I tried to clean it up best I could. And I polished it up with a Dremel. It's not the best, but it looks a lot better. And then I took the corrosion inhibitor and sprayed inside there. That gives it a little amber tone, but it should reduce the chance of stuff kind of getting in and corroding, because we do have some white corrosion around corners here. Anyway, so this goes with this. This is a part of the solenoid. So this kind of sticks in the solenoid. Solenoid sticks it out, and that activates the Bendix here. What holds it in is this little pin. So we're able to take this tiny snap ring out. I'm going to keep that in a safe place. So this is actually the lever part that acts on the shaft. And this shaft will move up and down with the Bendix. This is the Bendix. And this goes against your ring gear. So as you turn that starter over, that's going to push itself out into the ring gear, drive your engine, and then come back in when you let off. So this one, I'm gonna just give it just a little small coating of wheel bearing grease and put some grease on that, because that's rolling inside. All right, so now we kind of have to hold it together here. Get a little grease on the end bearing surface. I try to get this thing back together all as one. Keep my hands free of the nice shiny parts. And then if we can get this hole lined up correctly, and drop that pin in. The pin should go through that lever arm. Boom. Now that retains the whole Bendix assembly and the whole rotor there. All right, I think we're gonna put the this thing on next. It's the solenoid, and the other gasket goes on there. So I did go to the hardware store and I picked up some replacements for these bolts. These are solenoid bolts, and they had this stupid flathead. I know they loved those flatheads in the 60s, but I'm just not a big fan of them. So we're going to throw on a hex head. I also had the option of Allen head, but sometimes I don't have Allen wrenches handy, despite working on bikes all the time. So we're going to pop those on. These are stainless bolts, so they should be a little more weather resistant. The downside is, and I've mentioned this in my Insight videos, I believe, that stainless against aluminum will cause aluminum to corrode, so you always want to throw a little bit of anti-seize in between those to make sure that you're not causing galvanic corrosion. If any, they call it electrolyte. If any electrolyte gets between them, it will transfer electrons or something like that, and bad things happen. So, boom. Now we got the big piece. Now this is the main body of it. You can see the brushes in here. I'm not an electric motor expert. I don't know much about them, but I know those are the basic parts. So I'm going to try to basically slide this thing on. It's coming out of its hole at the other end here. So let's try to stick this upright. There is a locating pin right here, so I want to make sure that that goes in the locating hole, and I believe that's right here, opposite the solenoid. Ouch. All right, well, those are on. They're kind of sharp. I would recommend wearing gloves. A little bit of grease on there because that's just a bushing, it's not a bearing, so it needs something to ride on in there. And there we go. Before I get too far in this thing, there is one thing that I forgot. There's a little copper contact on the end here, and that brings power from the solenoid into the motor itself, or vice versa, I don't know. But I'm going to throw a new little stainless bolt in there. So I cleaned up the contact a little bit. I got a little paint on that when I was working, and I'm going to use a antioxidant compound on this screw, so that when I throw that in there, it should have good connection for a long time. I think the cost of the bolts in this is about $5, and everything else is just shop materials. So that's a really simple way to get your Corvair starter cleaned up and in a better condition to last longer for your car. I forgot the giant spring in the solenoid, so I guess I have to go put that back in. All right, there's a spring that's going to go in here, and we'll try to put this back on. I'm hoping we can get this all together at once. Work smart, not hard, right? Cool. I think I'm going to call that done. It looks a lot better than it did. It was really rusty before. I didn't bother to take a video before I started sanding it down, but big improvement. So we'll put that in the pile and get to the next item here. With a flurry of work going on to get Mouse back on the road, I've been kind of distracted and I haven't gotten much time to put on this project in a little bit, but I want to get these wheel bearings done. So I pulled the other one apart and did it my best. I'm not sure I have the best technique for that, but I'll show you what I did. I want to be clear, I didn't notice any problems with these wheel bearings, but I figured while they're out, I may as well throw some grease in and try to give them a little more life. So this is supposed to go like this. It helps give a little angular give for the swing axle because it does have independent rear suspension. So what we want to do first is we pull this dust cover off here. You can see the gap kind of opens and closes. Let's try to get that off. The last one was a real bear, so let's see if this one comes off any easier. Well, that looks like it's actually working. Huh. This did not work before. All right. I guess that's the way you get that off. And that kind of, yeah, it gets stuck in there. So that's what I actually cut off with the Dremel, which is very sketchy next to the axle shaft. But okay, so we got that pressed off. Now we got access to the bearing itself. Well, not really. We have this other shield dust cover thing here. So let's pry this off and we will get access to that bearing. Got a couple tabs here, and depending on your car, you might have different attachment schemes going on here, but my car has tabs. There we go, sweet. This is a sealed bearing, so you're not able to take it out and kind of repack it in the normal fashion. And if you have a bad bearing, you have the option of buying a new bearing and getting it pressed on at a shop. Or you can actually go to Clark's Corvair Parts, and they have a service where they will take a core, axle shaft, and hub. They'll press the old one off, they'll restore it and repaint it, and then press the new bearing on. It's a really good option to go with if you don't have access to a hydraulic press or anything, like most of us don't. But for me, these feel pretty good. They're pretty smooth, and I don't feel any kind of play side to side. So I'm going to try this re-greasing method that I saw online. I'm not sure if it's going to work, but let's stick it in, find out. And I do mean stick it in. This is a needle for the grease gun. It just kind of sticks on there. It's actually cool. It's got a basically a zerk in there, so you can stick it up to your grease gun just the way it is. You don't have to turn anything or twist it or screw anything on, so very convenient. Here's the part number. It's a Lincoln part, and then here's the Napa number. So I guess what you're supposed to do here is you stick the needle in between the seal. This is the seal here, and then there's a spherical part here. So I'm trying to get this in between them without puncturing the seal. Oh geez. The needle is not very strong, so it's a little challenging to get in there. Jeez, let's see if I can get this thing in. You got that one passed. Oh, geez. Oh, now I broke it. Nice. For me, on the other one, I was not actually able to get anything past there. Everything I shot in would come right back out the gap it made between the seal and the bearing race. So, it's pretty frustrating. What I'm going to do here actually is just add some grease around the edge, and we'll try to push that over and force just a little bit of grease in there. Again, these bearings do not feel bad to me. They're not exhibiting any excess wear or anything, so I'm just going to try to keep these things, give them a little something to chew on here, and I'm not going to worry about it too much. If I go drive this thing and they start making noise, I will get some new ones from Clark's and be done with it. So I guess I'll clean that up. I'm going to just tap this flat on the vise. Throw a little skim of grease in here to keep all the rusty bits away, and we will throw a little grease on here as well just to make sure that's all kind of coated against any corrosion. I'll throw this back on, and we will wait for the truck to arrive with my new parts. With those axles waiting for the new dust shields to come in, I'm going to move on to the control arm over here. Now, I made things a little bit easier on myself, and I opted to go for a Clark's multi-kit. Now, this is the ultimate rear suspension kit. They give you all the bushings, all the cushions for the subframe, all the bolts, all the washers. It's like the full thing. And then it's only one part number. So you click that part number and it orders everything for you. And over here I have the assembly manual, also from Clark's. And this is kind of like reprinted GM stuff, I believe. It shows you all the different parts that go in there, and then you have little torque specs in here as well for stuff that needs torques. We are going to concentrate on the control arms right now. I'm going to throw these bushings in. I got brand new bushings. These, this pivot thing and the control arm have been powder coated locally. And then I have the hardware here from Clark's, and that comes in the multi-kit. So we're going to go throw these control arm bushings in. I did the other one last night, and it was pretty easy, so let's get at it. First thing I'm going to do is look at kind of how these came out, and I remember that the flange was on the outside, so we need these things to be pressed in from the outside. We do have some rubber here, and so I'm going to throw some lubricant on that'll allow these to slide in to the control arm but not harm the rubber, and I'm going to use some Sil-Glide for that. It's a silicone-based lubricant. That's something that you can use on all kinds of rubber components, but something that'll allow it to slide a little bit better here. With that on, I'm just gonna pop one in here as far as it'll go by hand, and we'll move on. Now we have two sockets here. They're 1.5" sockets. Well, this is 1.5". This is 36 millimeter, but same thing basically. I actually bought this for the F600 lug nuts. So we're gonna put this over, and this is actually the same size as that flange, so we'll be able to pound on the flange itself and not worry about the rest. And I got a piece of PVC pipe here that will actually fit over the bushing itself as well. We'll put these both in the vise and clamp down, and that'll allow us to press that baby in. I think that's bottomed out. Looks good to me. Next thing is we have to have this bushing going in, but we need to have this in first. So how are we going to let this slide into these bushings? I'm going to put a little bit of chassis grease on these, and these will slide inside the middle of the bushing, so it should be safe from not hitting that rubber there. Let us get this in here. Start that in. Let's start this one in. Now we can take this down to the ground. We're going to put this on the bottom. It'll hold our bottom area. And then I'm going to get one on the top. All I'm going to do is just whack this thing in. That's it. When I got everything powder coated, I didn't know if I was going to be able to get these washers reproduced, so I got them powder coated as well. But Clark's multi-kit comes with them, so I'm going to put the new ones on. I did take a precaution with metal protector to get a little bit of some goop on there so they don't immediately rust, because these cars, normally these cars aren't seeing a whole lot of salt use or anything like that, and mine will see some of that, so let's do something about it. That's about it. You just screw those in, and you'll only want to torque them when the car is kind of back together, sitting on the ground and all that stuff. Into the pile it goes, and I want to give another huge shout out to Clark's Corvair Parts for sponsoring this video. Clark's is an amazing place, and they sell almost everything that you could ever want for these cars if you're restoring it or just keeping yours on the road. So go check them out if you are looking for Corvair parts. I gotta cut this video a little bit short. I want to get this out to you, and also I'm going up north this weekend for the Namaji Trail Winter Rally. I'm running in a 00 course opening car this weekend, which is a first for me, and I'm very excited about it. Hopefully someday this car will be a course opening car at a stage rally as well. But that remains to be seen. So subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching, and press on.